Now, because we are where we are, because maybe we are who we are, mining used to be the life's blood of this part of the world. So, I thought we would look at the hauntings caused by some of the horrific deaths that have occurred, not just where we live, but literally under our feet where we live. Under our very floorboards. It's Saturday, it's Metro, it's a grisly tale. Sometimes at this hour on a Saturday night, you get a ghost story that'll make you jump. On other occasions, a grisly story about who and what we are. In County Durham, Seaham Colliery used to be known as Nicky Knack, one of the largest pits in the East Durham coalfield, and as a consequence, many were killed in the black depths below the town and rolling out under to sea. Back in 1861, a 10-year-old little boy, William Knox, had worked down the pit for almost 2 years. His job was to feed pit ponies to move the coal tubs to and fro after they'd been emptied. Yet one day a set of 5 tubs gained rather too much momentum, and little William was trapped, crushed between the two. It was said that the tub hit him on the brow, actually crushing his little skull flat between 2 vehicles. William continues to haunt the people of Seaham. His parents, who ironically lived directly above some of the workings, were the first to see him. 3 days after he'd been laid to rest in Seaham's churchyard, one evening their front door opened, and in walked William as if nothing had happened. He shut the door and proceeded to remove his black, coal dust-covered clothes. He then walked out into the backyard and washed himself from an icy water butt. After that, both his mother and father saw him walk past them, smile, and head up to bed. The child also kept showing himself down below in the mines to his fellow miners, causing one man to hit his hand with a hammer, smashing his knuckles in shock. Within 5 years, over 300 sightings. And the hardest one to dismiss was at a meeting about overtime. 325 miners were there debating the possibilities when, just as an agreement was reached, a filthy boy walked across the yard between the miners and the owners and officials. Everyone saw the figure and all recognized it as William. Tom Heaton was a mining official, and he wrote in the notes of the meeting, "The deal was what was needed." And as if to testify to that, the ghost of little William Knox paid us all a surprise visit. The dead boy's ghost walked across the yard so slowly and deliberately, it seemed certain that he agreed with the outcome. In 1871, 26 men were working down there as normal, when one man crashed a pick against the rock face, creating a spark, and there was an explosion so great and so vast, people as far away as York and Newcastle were said to have felt it. Once the dust and flame had died away, miners raced down to see if anyone had survived the massive blasts. To their horror, the explosion had been so great, some of the bodies had been fused together in a tableau of death. They say that they had to snap off arms and legs just to be able to remove them from the pit. In the houses above, they began to complain about disturbances. They heard noises of something scraping beneath their feet. On some occasions, the family saw dark shapes moving through their terraced homes. Heavy footsteps walking upstairs. On some occasions, black, dusty handprints appearing on curtains and nets. In 1880, a 71-year-old miner, Robert Clark, began to tell his mates that he thought it was time for him to retire. They had been aware of how ill he'd been, so encouraged them to do just that. He'd been suffering the black spit, and if he was to have any kind of retirement, now was the time. Later that day, Robert walked down towards an empty seam, dragging a shovel. A spark from it lit the gas, and there was another almighty explosion, killing him outright. On getting down to where he had been, at first they couldn't find his body at all, until a gloop of human flesh and blood dripped down one of their faces. The blast had exploded in such a way that Robert's body had been fired up into the craggy surface of the roof of the pit, where it hung almost flat. It had to be carefully peeled off until it fell to the ground and was then removed by a stretcher. Robert's daughter Elizabeth spoke of how she kept seeing her late father regularly. Yet the most gruesome was when she and her new boyfriend were sleeping together at that house in Salem. At 3 minutes past 3 in the afternoon, the bedroom door burst open, and in walked the late Robert Clark, his face and body covered in blood. His feet appeared to be missing. He seemed to scream without being able to properly use his mouth or throat, and it came out like a bloody gurgle. Then it disappeared, and the door slammed shut again. I would imagine regaining an erection after that would take some doing. Yet it's right up that northeastern coast that there have been hundreds of ghostly sightings that have been witnessed by so many that they can't all be imaginings. At Harton Pit, 92 miners died in a massive explosion and cave-in. Next door at St Hilda's Colliery, 52 lives. In Westo, a few lads killed by a fall of stone. Now, South Shields has a network of tunnels under the heart of their town. At a supermarket there, over 40 sightings of jet black shadows, some clearly identified as being miners, some witnessed by as many as 10 people at a time. A small bakery was forced to close in the centre of South Shields in the 1960s when it suffered incessant hauntings of miners that the new owners simply could no longer bear. 3 streets in South Shields suffered major haunting following a cave-in back in 1877. Dark figures would appear from the floor, looking as if they were people drowning, waving their arms around in a panic. Their screams and screeches were so loud, neighbours 8 doors away clearly heard them. Since then, a ghost has appeared that is downright evil. A poltergeist of the worst kind. This dark figure looking black, a black-faced miner leaping out at you. It waits until the tenants go to sleep and then does all it can to keep them awake, slamming doors, switching lights on and off, switching on radios and televisions full blast, and even slapping the face of the person sleeping. In 1989, 8 flats in Robert Street, South Shields, suffered these type of attacks. One would be tenant Richie Hodgson, merely looking around for a place when some dark creature ran out and slammed him against a wall. It hit him so hard that it fractured his skull and he needed to be taken by ambulance to hospital. The estate agency worker explained that he had tripped. Yet Richie said, "I just got to the top of the stairs when I see this tatty man about 5'6", covered in what looked to be coal dust. He just ran at me, slamming my head against a wall. After that, I've no idea what happened until I woke up in hospital." Interesting that several of these flats are still available to rent today. Further up the River Tyne, the Felling Colliery suffered countless losses of lives, yet on May 25th, 1812, there was an almighty explosion killing 92 people.